Good morning. Sorry for the little delay in getting started. A lot of technical challenges, but I invite you to rise and by the act of our Spirit for our opening hymn, Our World is One World. Reverend J. Wolin, the settled minister of the Unitarian Universalists of Sarasota. We especially want to welcome our visitors here, both those who are in person as well as those who are online on YouTube over our live stream, or maybe watching during the week on recording. I'm like in the future now, I don't know. So we invite our visitors to participate in any of the events at our congregation. We welcome you as well to find out more about Unitarian Universalism. So we encourage you to either sign our visitor book, which is right outside the front door here, or as well you can go online on our virtual guest book and sign up there. And if you do, you will get emails, at least hopefully only once a week, but occasionally one or two more, with our newsletter as well as links to some of our events that are on Zoom still. As well, always please join us for coffee and dessert after the service, as we hope to get to know each other better. So we have a few special announcements today. Get-together dinners, a great way to get to know your UU friends, and they're held at people's homes, and everyone brings a dish to share, and there'll be a sign up in the courtyard. As well, Reproductive Justice Team is pleased to announce that the Unitarian Universalist of Sarasota has been awarded the Golden Clipboard. Yeah, let's give them a hand for our outstanding dedication to Sarasota to put abortion on the ballot in November. And there were many people who were involved in doing that. I know Pam French, I know Marie Keeney, I know Kate Landman, anybody else. Why don't you stand up if you were involved in that, in the Reproductive Justice Ballot Initiative, please. Oh, look at that. It would not have happened without you. And now I'd like to invite up Karen Bush, who I know she is not Aubrey Phillips, which is what it says in the, this is Karen Bush, who will be subbing for Aubrey, who's a little under the weather today.
Thank you, Jeff. Good morning. Aubrey is home taking care of herself with a cold, I hope a small cold, and protecting us from any kind of germs. Yesterday, as a member of the Stewardship Committee, I sent Aubrey a request to provide some data on how the stewardship pledging is going. And she wrote back an email that nearly broke my heart. But I asked her permission to share it with you because it's a very important message, and I'll comment on it at the end. But I'd like you to listen carefully, particularly in light of the hymn that we just sang. Since I, Aubrey, was first approached about sharing a testimonial, the following two ideas have been on my mind and heart. Our principle affirming the inherent worth and dignity of every person, and this line from hip-hop artist and activist Killer Mike. Now I only go to churches where they welcome worthless men who had to get it out the mud and rise up out the sediment. While I, Aubrey, can absolutely get behind painting a clearer picture of pledging overall and emphasizing the impact that our collective pledges have, I want to share that I have had several newer, younger UUs express feelings of shame and exclusion around pledging, particularly around the average amount being out of reach. As a result, I had hoped to center my message around the collective impact people of different backgrounds and means can have by pledging what they can. Generosity is relative, especially as many working families struggle to make ends meet or navigate significant disruptions like layoffs or divorces, and members of all generations face amidst inflation and increasing housing costs. While my family's experience since returning to the congregation last year has been overwhelmingly positive, when we originally joined in 2018, the Pledge campaign was the first time anyone outside the RE program had reached out to us. We had recently become a single-income household. We're fortunate to be in a more stable place now, but the experience left us feeling like our pocketbook, rather than our presence, was what was most valued by our fellow congregants. This experience was the main driver in our decision to step away the congregation from the past 5 years. If you know Aubrey, you know she and her husband are extremely active now. As we continue moving toward a multicultural, multi-generational congregation, I know we can both encourage everyone to pledge generously and be mindful to honor that generosity is relative and that every member of this community has value. Thank you for your grace and understanding in love and community, Aubrey. You can see how that had an effect on me, because I've been up here urging people to pledge and to be as generous as they possibly can. What I, at least, have failed to communicate is that we never want someone to pledge beyond their means, and that everyone's pledge, no matter what it is, counts. So I'm going to continue to urge people to pledge. However, I want you to know that no matter what you pledge, no matter how much, no matter how little, you are equally appreciated. Small pledges, as Aubrey has pointed out, add up across people, and we now have lots of people. So someone from the someone from the Stewardship Committee might contact you if you haven't pledged yet. If that happens, and the person encourages you to pledge, try to pledge something. But if that's not possible, just say, it's not a good idea this year. Let's see about next year. Thank you.
Do not leave your cares at the door. Do not leave. Good morning. Can you hear me? Here comes the person who knows. I don't mind.
I know it's embarrassing. You are on.
I am on.
You are on. Use the podium for the time being.
Okay. Can you hear me now? Technology. Oh, you can hear me? Ah, wonderful. Okay. My name is Linda Bodycomb, and I am the UU Service Committee liaison for this congregation. I want to start this morning by doing a short land acknowledgement. Please join me in acknowledging the indigenous peoples whose land we now occupy and use as our own. The Calusa, Uzita, Tocobaga, Timucuan, Seminole, and Miccosukee peoples lived here before us. That's a lot of different tribes. They were effective stewards of the land, the air, and the waters that provided them sustenance. For the welfare of future generations, we will take active steps to learn wisdom from the indigenous populations who are still with us, especially the Miccosukee, Seminole, and Black Seminoles who live to the south of here. And now we will light our chalice. And please recite with me. Okay. As we light this chalice, the symbol of Unitarian Universalism, we affirm our sixth principle, the goal of world community with peace, justice, and justice for all.
I'm feeling super tall today. Today's story is The Last Stop on Market Street, words by Matt de la Pena and pictures by Christian Robinson. CJ pushed through the church doors. The air outside smelled like freedom, but it also smelled like rain, which freckled CJ's shirt and dripped down his nose. He ducked under his Nana's umbrella, saying, "How come we gotta wait for the bus in all this wet?" "Trees get thirsty too," his Nana told him. "Don't you see that big one drinking through a straw?" And from the bus stop, he watched the rain patter against the windshield of a nearby car. His friend Colby climbed in and gave CJ a wave and drove off with his dad. "Nana, how come we don't got a car?" "Boy, what do we need a car for when we got a bus that breathes fire? And old Mr. Dennis, who always has a trick for you." Well, the bus creaked to a stop in front of them. It sighed and sagged, and the door swung open. "What's that I see?" Mr. Dennis asked, and he pulled a coin from behind CJ's ear and placed it in his palm. Nana laughed and pushed CJ along. They sat right up front. The man across the way was tuning a guitar, and an old woman with curlers had butterflies in a jar. Nana gave everyone a great big smile and a good afternoon, and she made sure that CJ did the same. Well, the bus lurched forward and stopped, lurched forward and stopped, and Nana hummed as she knit. "How come we always gotta go here after church?" CJ said. "Miguel and Colby, they never have to go nowhere." "Well, I feel sorry for those boys," Nana told him. "They'll never get a chance to meet Bobo or the sunglass man." CJ stared out the window, feeling sorry for himself. He watched a group of boys hop curbs on bikes. A man climbed aboard with a spotted dog. "How come that man can't see?" "Boy, what do you know about seeing?" Nana told him. "Some people watch the world with their ears." "Or their noses, too," said the man, sniffing the air. "That's a beautiful perfume, man." And Nana squeezed the man's hand and laughed. Two older boys got on next, and CJ watched them as they moved on by, listening to music on their headphones. "Sure wish I had one of those," CJ said. Nana set down her knitting. "What for, when you've got the real live thing sitting across from you?" The guitar player was already plucking strings and beginning to sing. "To feel the magic of music," the blind man whispered, "I like to close my eyes." So Nana closed hers too, and so did CJ and the spotted dog. The rhythm lifted CJ out of the bus and out of the busy city. He saw sunset colors swirling over crashing waves. He saw the old woman's butterflies dancing free in the light of the moon, and his chest grew full, and the sound gave him the feeling of magic. Then the song ended, and everyone on the bus clapped, including the boys in the back. Nana glanced at the coin in CJ's hand, and he dropped it in the man's hat. "Last stop on Market Street," Mr. Dennis called. So CJ looked around as he stepped off the bus. Crumbling sidewalks and broken down doors, graffiti-tagged windows and boarded-up stores. He reached for his Nana's hand. "How come it's always dirty over here?" She smiled and pointed to the sky. "Sometimes when you're surrounded by dirt, CJ, you're a better witness for what is beautiful." CJ saw the perfect rainbow arcing over the soup kitchen, and he wondered how his Nana always found beauty where he never even thought to look. When he spotted their familiar faces in the window, he said, "I'm glad we came." He thought his Nana might laugh, but she didn't. She patted him on the head and told him, "Me too, CJ. Now, come on." So it's easy to see why this book won the Coretta Scott King Award for Peace, Nonviolent Social Change, Brotherhood, and Honor. It is a reminder for all of us to teach our children some valuable life lessons, that even if you feel you don't have a lot, you can always help those in need of a helping hand. Whether you are big or small or young or old or rich or poor or struggling yourself, you always have something to give. It could be just a smile, or opening a door for someone, or volunteering to help at the soup kitchen. The time you give to others is precious. And people matter more than things. And people matter more than inconveniences. It's seeing those in need, not as broken or weak or disabled, but seeing the humanity in them. Humans seeking acknowledgement that they matter. We all matter, for we are connected near and far, and the smallest thing you can do for others in need uplifts us all. So I now invite our children and youth to join me in the West Wing, where we'll learn more about homelessness and then do a social action project together. Thank you.
Our centering words today are from the hymnal number 550, We Belong to the Earth. The earth does not belong to us. We belong to the earth. This we know, all things are connected like blood, which unites one family. All things are connected. Whatever befalls the earth befalls all the children of the earth. We did not weave the web of life. We are merely a strand in it. Whatever we do to the web, we do to ourselves. So as we go into our moment of silence, let us meditate on the ways that we impact the interdependent web of existence. So last year, when we did our Unitarian Universalist Service Committee service, I talked about its founding in 1940 when Unitarian minister Reverend Waitstill Sharp and his wife Martha went to Eastern Europe at the start of the Second World War to help liberate those who were being persecuted by the Nazis escape Europe. The organization continues this life-saving work today, as we will hear later reflections by our UUSC liaison, Linda Bodycomb, and our worship committee member as well. I've always been impressed with the service committee due to their working with local grassroots organizations across the globe. And to quote their website, to help them determine and implement their plan for relief. Now, I want to share with you experiences that I had at a training that I took with UUSC, again, that stands for Unitarian Universalist Service Committee, that provided participants with the opportunity to better understand the implications of multiculturalism. And I admit that even for me, someone who has done extensive work on anti-racism and anti-oppression study, it was a challenging class. In every class after the English speaker talked, someone would repeat the exact same thing in Spanish. And it provided an experience for us to feel what it was like to be a non-native speaker in the room. It was a way to teach us empathy for someone who might not speak our language. And I found myself yearning for efficiency in the class. I was thinking, well, why don't they just say it in Spanish with like English subtitles? That would save a lot of time in the class. But again, that wasn't the point. The point was to teach us patience. The work of justice is hard and it's long work that requires patience and it requires courage. And it requires sticking with it even when you are uncomfortable with something, even when you may not understand it or agree with it. The training was a reminder that it's not always about us. I'm reminded to understand that different ideas and to understand people who are different than I was. A lifetime of experiences has taught me to sit with my uncomfortableness, to stay open, to listen, and to learn. And one of the sessions in that program provided a list of 30 demands from people of color to white people. And I know when I heard that, internally, I recoiled. I kept this calm face on. And I thought, demands? I'm here volunteering my time. Why are you demanding something from me? Right? And then I remembered I was not there for me. Right? And then I remembered I was there to be an ally to people of color. I was being asked to use my powers in ways that would benefit them in ways they needed, not the ways I thought they needed me or what was easiest for me. And I will tell you, this led me to going in and dealing with the chief of police in that town that I lived in and having some uncomfortable conversations with him, but conversations that I was less at risk for than if the people of color had those conversations with them. And they asked me to do that, and I did. And to me, this is the spiritual practice of social justice. To see myself or yourself as part of something larger than just ourselves. To not put myself first, but to be able to take a back seat, to allow others to determine the best way that I could help them. For me, a spiritual practice, just so we're aware, when I say spiritual practice, is anything that you do with reverence, that you give attention to, with the intention to get beyond one's own ego. And we practice not for the sake of practice. I think about my meditation practice, a spiritual practice, right? You know, I practice every day doing my meditation, but it's not for the sake of practicing. And the same thing with social justice. It's not for the sake of doing it. It is for the sake of putting all those skills into our day-to-day life. Now, the Unitarian Universalist Service Committee has been educating people and putting that education into practice to empower the oppressed to fight against systemic oppression. And if we can put a picture of where these are locations where they have partners all over the world, in Haiti and Central America, and now, sadly, here in Florida, where we actually have a travel advisory for people traveling here. And so throughout the world, we empower those who are oppressed. And what I ultimately learned was that we should not limit ourselves, seeing only the duality of this or that, not Spanish or English, but a third way that includes both and more. Not spiritual or social justice, but a third way that includes both and more. Not help the suffering or let them die, right? But a third way that creates an environment that reduces the cause of suffering in the first place. And especially in the midst of the global conflicts that we see all over the world, instead of the duality of vengeance or forgiveness, let us imagine a new day and a new way when we will work in partnership with others, recognizing the interdependence of all things and all beings and all countries, not only with each other, but with the earth itself, so that our descendants will still have a habitable earth to live on. Our world is one world. And now I invite you, we're going to hear a video from one of our those UUSC partners in regard to climate change.
I'm speaking to you today from my island home of Fiji. For us, climate justice is more than just a buzzword. It represents the intersection between climate change and social justice. It recognizes that those who are least responsible for causing climate change are often the ones who bear the heaviest burden of its impacts. It acknowledges that vulnerable communities, marginalized groups, and future generations are disproportionately affected by the consequences of a warming planet. For precisely this reason, we decided to seek the help of the world's highest court to deliver an advisory opinion on climate change and human rights and what are state obligations relating to climate change in a bid to ramp up climate action, but more specifically, climate justice. Back in university, we were always told about the perspective that the Pacific is a small, isolated, vulnerable, and essentially insignificant region. Power under this narrative remained in the hands of the powerful countries, but we chose to disrupt this perspective. A campaign to save our futures, our homes, our lives was necessary, and this meant the Pacific charting a path, journeying to the International Court of Justice despite insurmountable odds. What has been even more promising is the agency of the young people in this campaign, who initially brought this idea up to Pacific leaders. When we reached out to our leaders and continued to build momentum behind our campaign, we realized day by day that youth all over the world are tired of the status quo and are calling for a change. This campaign for an ICJ advisory opinion seeks to do the very same. It is an unconventional, out-of-box idea that succeeded in the UN under the leadership of countries that were traditionally labeled as insignificant, and it was backed by the powerhouse of underestimated young people. Power for us has never been on our side, but this is now beginning to change. Our fight for climate justice also includes the very significant focus on intergenerational equity. We must understand that all that we do will have repercussions on our tomorrow. But what we sometimes fail to understand is who those people would be that would have to deal with these repercussions. Intergenerational equity seeks to put this at the heart of dealing with the climate crisis. And so our actions, and by extension the actions of our leaders and governments, matter. We need to realize that each ordinary person carries immense power and potential, and if we are to leave a better world, one that ensures intergenerational equity, we need to wield this power to help address the climate crisis. Our fight and our campaign continues. We are now preparing for the court submissions in the second phase of the campaign. Our focus is on bringing the voices of the marginalized, those most affected by climate change, and of the youth to the ICJ so that these can inform on the advisory opinion that will be released by the court. On this journey, we are very grateful to the UUSC for joining our family of supporters in helping build youth power and capacity as we move ahead in our campaign. Finally, I would like to make a call for everyone to join our voyage for climate justice. This is no longer just about the Pacific or about the ICJ. It is now about the legacy that we want to leave behind and the desire to not leave a world that is destroyed by parasitic injustices that has brought our planet to its knees today. And most assuredly, this is about the power of the people. Thank you, Vinaka and Dhanyawad.
Is focusing on the theme Pursuing Liberation, which is their way of pushing back on fascism, authoritarianism, nationalism, both abroad and here in the United States. As you can see from this large map of the United States, all of the partners that the UUSC works with, they are great ambassadors and change agents, working hard in so many areas globally, both domestically and internationally. I could sing their praises for hours, but I don't think you want to sit here that long. So I'm going to share two news items from the UUSC world with you this morning. First, a group of 20 made up of staff and partners from the UU Service Committee were sent to COP28 in Dubai just last month for 2 weeks. COP stands for Conference of Parties, which is part of the UN Climate Action Conference, the body that is responsible for assessing efforts to deal with climate change on a global basis. Last year, I talked about a group of young men that petitioned the UN for help with the effect of climate change that it's had on their ancestral lands in the South Pacific. Vishal Prasad, who you just saw in the video, was one of those Pacific Islanders who went to New York to petition the UN, and they had great success in being heard. They are continuing to advocate. This picture that you're seeing was actually Vishal was on that boat. And they are continuing to advocate for the larger polluting nations to help smaller nations like his who are most affected by climate change. The UN court is expected to announce a legal decision this summer. Amazingly, this year's conference in Dubai in December began with formalizing a global loss and damage fund on the very first day. And it has been a key element in UUSC's advocacy for climate justice. Perhaps the efforts of Vishal and his friends have influenced this action. What that means is that the United Arab Emirates, a leader in fossil fuel production, surprisingly brought this up. And they, along with Germany, each of them both pledged $100 million for this fund. And it's amazing because UAE produces a lot of oil. And so for them to make this was a huge thing. UUSC is going to be pressuring the United States government to increase its contribution because it was very small compared to what the others gave. You can see some of these up here. There are people in kayaks in the New York harbor protesting oil. Even the presence with the increase, and while at COP28, there were lots and lots of oil lobbyists trying to get their wants and desires into the whole mix. But there was progress made with trying to limit that. The UU Service Committee also partnered with members of faith communities to create a faith pavilion, the first time that this was done. This is, by the way, COP has been going on, this is the 28th year, and there's never been a faith pavilion before. The woman in yellow is the vice president of the UUSC. The pavilion was dedicated by the Pope via satellite from Rome, along with the Grand Imam of Dubai, as a gathering place for voices of morality and faith. It was a very strong interfaith effort. It was meant to be a space for meditation, daily prayers, and as a haven for leaders, spiritual and secular, who needed pastoral care during the long 2 weeks of intense meetings and negotiations. 2 weeks is a long time to be at a meeting like that. They also needed a safe space to exchange ideas about how to guide people who have been affected by climate change and for those who have lost their ancestral homes. UUSC's VP and staff met with John Kerry while they were there to discuss the service committee's work. I don't mean to be dropping names, but they also strengthened and started new coalitions to help build larger groups focused on environmental action. Luckily, their work is paying off because the UUSC is being seen as a hub for lots of organizations, especially those legal aid agencies that want to have help with ethical work. Some of the organizations wanting to work with us are the Climate Action Network, the Washington Interfaith Group, and the Legal Justice Coalition. And UUSC partnered with the Legal Justice Coalition to work on the latest US Farm Bill. So UUSC, even though it does a lot of international work, is actually doing a lot domestically also. Also very important to the portfolio of UUSC has been to work with indigenous groups who had a much larger influence at COP this year. They are being seen as the wise folks, or wisdom keepers, who ultimately know about how to take care of the earth. It's so rewarding to be able to report to you about UUSC's environmental actions and successes, and so you know how your support is being used.
The storm is passing over. The storm is passing over. The storm is passing over. Hallelujah. 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 The storm is passing over. The storm is passing over. The storm is passing over. Hallelujah. 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 The storm is passing over. The storm is passing over. The storm is passing over. Hallelujah. Hallelujah.
Hallelujah. Okay, this second bit of news is very different from the first bit of news. It's about a new program that's closer to home, and it's called Pink Haven, which has not been publicized yet. I was given the go-ahead last week at a UUSC meeting in California to let you know about it today. UUSC is returning to its roots when it was created in Europe to help the Jews and marginalized people escape from the hands of the Nazis. We provided papers and safe passage for hundreds of people at that time. Now we do plan to do the same here, but unfortunately the need is in our country, our own state of Florida, in Texas, and soon to be happening in Ohio. The map you see shows all the states that place restrictions on transgender individuals. The blue and gray states are safe states, safe places for them. The orange is a high-risk state, and the brown ones are unsafe because bans for transgender health care for either children or adults or both. Did you know that children can actually be taken away from their parents if the authorities found out they have getting gender-affirming care? That's pretty bad. Taking a look at Florida, the map indicates we have the most challenges at present for transgender children and adults. There are around 95,000 transgender people in Florida, which is the largest number of second largest of any state in the nation. There is a travel ban for trans folks to fly through Florida since they can be arrested if they get caught using the wrong bathrooms. Individuals and families are leaving these high-risk states because of violence, legal restrictions, and not being able to get the gender-affirming care that they need. UUSC was asked to help with this program by some indigenous trans activists who heard about some UU congregations' work to help asylum seekers. They have asked UUSC if they could help relocate trans folks to safer states. The UU Service Committee formed a coalition with Quakers, Jews, and believe it or not, Mennonites, and the United Church of Christ, who will create networks of safety and direct support for trans beloveds and their families who need to relocate, access health care across state lines, or stay safe as possible where they live now. I bet you remember the Green Book that was developed by African Americans so they could travel safely in the South. One of the efforts will be to borrow from that idea, as well as the Underground Railroad, to get those folks to safe harbor. They are creating a guide to find friendly hotels, restaurants, gas stations, and homes that will welcome them while they're on their difficult journey. Because of safety concerns for trans organizations, our coalition partners, and the people they are trying to help, we are prioritizing their safety and security. Thus, we cannot share any of the names of the individuals or their organizations with you this morning. We do not want them to experience threats. So this creates a challenge for us to get assistance from our congregations since we can't publicize this widely. However, there's a website, there's always a website, that you can look up. It's pinkhaven.org. So that's pretty easy to remember. And perhaps we can do a forum about this in the future so I can give you more details. How can you help? First and most obviously, you can make sure your membership with the UUSC is up to date, and you can also donate more to support these efforts. Second, the UUSC is looking for volunteers to host travelers for one-night stays as they journey to safer places. They are also looking for volunteers who can provide support in navigating government programs, accessing health care, and finding employment in host states north of us. And lastly, you can become more aware of the lives of transgender folks, especially if you are not up on what their universe looks like and feels like. I can recommend a very good book that our women's book discussion here at UUSRQ, I can recommend that book, Becoming Nicole by Amy Ellis Nutt. There are lots of other sources to check out. But this one really made me understand a little bit about their world. Understanding is what it's like to walk in someone else's shoes, brings us one step closer to following our UU values. I hope I have connected well enough with you to help you feel proud and excited about the work that the UU Service Committee does in the name of Unitarian Universalism and the values we profess to live by. Maybe I have piqued your interest to learn more too. I know I was excited to share this news with you this morning. This morning's Share the Plate will go to the UU Service Committee, but you can help even more by becoming a member or by renewing your membership. Plus, what you give today can be considered a charitable donation if you fill out the envelope, that's in your order of service, with either credit card information or by inserting your check. I've got mine. Yearly membership is only $40, or if you are feeling more generous, you can donate $150 or more, and the Shelter Rock Congregation of Long Island will match your donation. If you'd rather do an online donation, there's information on the back of the order of service telling you how to do that. And as you donate to UUSC, you know you will be giving to a worthy UU social justice organization that serves our state, our nation, and internationally, and that it has the highest rating on Charity Navigator. We will now hear from the Reverend Laura Randall, a UUSC staff member. She has a special message for us as we find ways to be generous with our regular offering, share the plate, and with the UUSC. Yes, and with UUSC. There's too many UUs. Many thanks to you. Actually, that's a good thing, too many UUs. Anyway, many thanks to you who help this important work continue.
Hello, Unitarian Universalists of Universalist Service Committee, and I'm here to say thank you so much for your incredible, steadfast support of UUSC. With all of the uncertainty and sorrow these last few years have brought us, and the many challenges on the horizon, your congregation is acting as a beacon of hope and solidarity for our grassroots partners around the world and here in the United States. With your support, you are helping to ensure that UUSC's commitment to advancing human rights and resisting oppression can rise to meet this moment. Thank you for saying yes to a world we seek, a world filled with more justice and more compassion for everyone, a world that recognizes the inherent dignity and power in each and every person. Thank you for being a part of UUSC. We are your service committee, and we could not do this work without you. Thank you.
Our closing words are from the Earth Charter. Let ours be a time remembered for awakening of a new reverence of life, the firm resolve to achieve sustainability, the quickening of the struggle for justice and peace, and the joyful celebration of life. Now I invite you to rise in body and our spirit for our closing hymn. It's going to be We'll Build a Land, verses 1 and 2.
Dissolves all mourning.
Please join us in extinguishing the chalice. The words are above. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. Thank you all for your presence here today. Thank you.